and we are live on Facebook and aka YouTube. So welcome guys to For Feck's Sake Marketing Adventures with Carmel, where we bring you amazing guests like the one that I have today, and also share with you tips and tricks about marketing, about how to build a business, and with the guests, how to get over some of those things that we know you actually experience too. So I'm Carmel, your host of For Feck's Sake Marketing, and today I have with me the amazing Jodie Wakefield. Welcome, Jodie.
Hello, Carmel. This is so exciting. Thank you so much for inviting me on today. It's awesome. I'm excited, but also daunted. Be gentle.
My pleasure. Of course, I'm always gentle. So Jodie is a get a grip body worker and emotional archaeologist. So it's fascinating to hear at Family Tree of Beliefs, which you'll see her name just down the bottom of the screen. She's an expert in genealogy with a twist, which is about uniting your potential and your reality to empower you to grow to greater heights. And part of that is about our ancestors and how those beliefs are, even though we don't know it, we're quite unconscious of it, isn't that right, Jodie? Are actually passed down, and we're living sometimes from our ancestors' belief systems. So before we get right into it, can you just tell us a little bit about Jodie, the person, and why or how she came to be doing this right now?
Okay, long story, mid-50s. So, there's been a bit of life lived. So about 6 years ago, I was selling earthing products and essential oils and blends and that kind of thing. And I was doing some coaching, some business coaching. And I had also, in the background, started looking at my physical family tree, my actual ancestors. And luckily, thankfully, my mum had done an awful lot of that work already. So I looked at some of that, and I can't remember exactly why that started happening or anything like that, but I began to see patterns. Right. And the patterns in particular were on both sides of my family, my mum and my dad's side. There were several generations where 8-year-old children had lost a parent. Generation after generation after generation. And it was on both sides. So it was like it converged with me. They came together. Yeah. And I just started to realize all of it. It was like something just dropped, a penny dropped for me, that we don't just inherit blue eyes, freckles, red hair, talents and traits like our parents. We actually also inherit other things. So, and that I began to realize went to trauma responses, belief systems, all sorts of habitual responses, sayings, especially sayings in life, lots of things that we actually say and we repeat over and over again. I'm sure you've got some in your family.
And we
just say them. Yeah, we get, and it is like a program. We are like being programmed. And I know that we're all part of this. We've all grown up in that way. I don't know too many people who have got to be, or have become an adult and have not somehow managed to slip through and not have some of that programming on board. It's just part of living a human life.
It's the environment that you're in. So, if you're in that environment, somebody keeps telling you something over and over again, then absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started working with a few clients in that sense of looking at ancestral patterns, things that had happened in other people's lives, in their family. You have something impacting your life now. And you're not sure why. You don't know why it's there. It doesn't feel true for you. Classic example is a fear of heights, fear of snakes, something like that. And you have no actual lived experience of your own to make sense of that. You've never had an issue with actually falling from a great height or, being bitten or chased by a snake. It's like, why do you have that irrational fear? Yeah. And if you're able to actually question and find out from ancestors, generally, parents, grandparents, you'll find that one or more of them, or your extended family, it can be aunties and uncles as well, you will probably find that one of them had that on board.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this isn't actually mine. I've inherited it. And it has changed. And what it does is it changes the expression of the DNA. From my understanding, it doesn't change the DNA. It changes how that DNA shows up for us. So we've got, that has been changed through trauma in that person's life. Say grandma, for example.
Yeah.
She's had a traumatic experience with a snake, for example. And then you've inherited that trauma response. She has that fear on board, probably never dealt with it in any way or found a way to deal with it. And it's been passed down through the generations. And that's what you have on board.
So with that passed down, for example, it's something then as a child, when she has a child, she said to the child, oh, don't touch the snake, they're scaries. And then, you know, that child said, don't touch that snake, it's scary. Yeah.
So exactly. So they actually verbally passing it down as well. And so that's an environmental impact. That's an environmental programming and environmental inheritance.
Yeah.
So we're impacted in more ways than just a DNA change.
Yeah,
or
it makes sense.
A change in that.
Because I'll share just a brief story in the middle of that, is because I always remember this story about these family, big, huge family, and they always had a big palaver over Christmas about this particular roast and how they did it, because that was how grandmother did it and mother before, and wrapped in herbs and blah, blah, blah. And then whatever way they wrapped it and rolled it, they always had to cut the ends off it and put it in and, you know, make sure. It was just a big palaver. But one of the children this day went, why do we cut the ends off it? Oh, that's what my mother used to always do. That's why we always did it, blah, blah, blah. But the grandmother was actually still alive. So they went, hang on, I'm really curious. They went and said, grandmother, why do we do it like that? She said, because the bacon tin I had was too small. So I had to cut the ends off it.
Yeah.
But it became this whole big palaver about it. That was like, they just assumed that's what you have to do to make it even, to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the bacon tin was
exactly. And that's where it comes around, like, you know, that comes the question everything. Actually question, does that feel true for me? Do I believe that now as an adult? Is that the right way for me to be carrying on in my life?
And
does it feel right?
I love that you say, you know, to be brave enough to question it. So obviously there was a stage when you were questioning something to actually go and look for this. And even though you may not specifically remember what that was, the curiosity has got in there. So did you go then and study more and delve more into what does all this mean?
Well, I actually did, but I took off on a tangent of patterns and belief systems. And so that's where I had been for the last sort of almost 6 years. And so I then went and I visited the graves of those family members. I actually went physically to their graves because they were in Melbourne. So like, you know, an hour and a half away from me. And I went and found out where they were, and I sat with them, and I talked to them. And when I say talk, I mean, you know, with my mouth. I wasn't psychically communing or anything like this. This is 6 years ago, a bit different now. It's amazing the way I can connect with them now. But what I also found was that my phone would play games with me when I was there, and it would, the power button, like the number, the percentage of power, it would just drop and then turn off while I'm sitting at the graves of my family members. Now, this had never, ever, ever, ever happened in my life before, or with that phone. And it was just like Spirit finds ways to connect with us. They find ways to send us signs that are usually symbolic. Now, to me, that's like a connection, isn't it? Communication.
Well, and only if you have the eyes to see it, or the awareness to feel it, because it is around. And look, to some people, you and I both know, to some people they go, that's a bit woo-woo. I'm not sure. It's like, well, that's okay. If you want to call it woo-woo, that's woo-woo. But that's being open-minded enough to say, well, is it possible? And to allow it, well, if it is possible, what message could they be sending me, and how can it help me now?
Yeah. And that's where the how can it help me now? Only very recently, and I mean like in the last month or so, have I actually, after 6 years, started to realize that I had kind of like taken off with the idea of patterns and belief systems and inheritance of something repeating itself without thinking about the impact on the lives of the people affected, in particular these children. And the thing about them were they were nearly all 8 years old. They were nearly all 8 when they lost a mother or a father, and it was direct line. And so you can imagine the amount of grief, unresolved grief, and of
because
course
they didn't know how to resolve
it
at that age. They would have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we're talking back in, I think, the 40s. That's the most recent one. So we're talking and 40s
children should
and
be
beyond.
seen and not heard. Yeah, children should be seen and not heard. So the children couldn't even orate what was going on for them.
Exactly. And just not really considered. Not really considered their feelings. And I believe that even happens still a little bit today. You know, I mean, children have lost a part of their family. So,
and tell me, sorry to interrupt. So tell me then, with the people that you deal with, talk with, and assist, what are they experiencing now that you can trace back to some of these old beliefs or inherited beliefs? Like, how is it showing up in their life now that they would say, oh, something's not quite right?
Yeah, for sure. So it will be, often it'll be, in particular, I've been working with women, and so it will be an oversharing, overhelping, overgiving type of thing, which is, as we know, for a lot of women, that's just the way they were brought up. And it is an environmental thing. We've actually verbally been told, set to be seen and not heard. Women are there to be a support for their husbands, not worked so much out of the home, all of those kinds of things. And so we've just evolved in that way to actually give and give and give. And to basically, I think, is sublimate the right word, or just like to put our needs.
Yeah.
To put our needs second.
Yeah. Is part of that to do with the masculine feminine energy, as in way back in the day, as in, and this is very stereotypical, not meant to be that way, where the men's job was to go out and hunt, and the woman's job was to stay home and create community in order for her and her lineage to survive. So therefore we had to make sure other people were okay or whatever, because the danger was this saber-toothed tiger would come to the cave and I couldn't fight him off. So we'd have to have more people. So, it was less dangerous. Does it actually subliminally come from that kind of inheritance energy?
Oh, it's bound to. But the interesting thing you said there is community. And we don't tend to have community for women so much anymore. It's something I didn't grow up with personally.
And it's a
circle of female friends. It is a deep core need, and it's actually one of my top, my top 3 needs I've discovered, and that I just really don't do well without. And so isolation, especially at the moment, what we've been going through,
because you're in Melbourne
also
right now,
brought.
Isn't that right? Yeah.
Well, I'm in Ballarat now, so I was displaced 2.5 hours away from where I used to live and family and everybody else. So my isolation has been, compounded as well in that way.
Absolutely.
Not able to get out and meet people and create community again, and build new space around me, a new community of people around me. But back to about the subliminal messages, is yes, we need community. We all need community to survive, and we have had those communities almost like replaced by work in a lot of places for women, because we're now the homemaker and the worker, and we've struggled with how we make that work together. And the whole superwoman thing that a lot of
we
us
feel not enough if we can't. Yeah, we feel not enough if we can't. It's really quite
Exactly.
challenging.
Exactly.
So one of the
Yeah.
other things that I know that this is all kind of, you know, if you like, I'm using the word loosely, but more of a spiritual of a feeling, and some of it outside. But I know that you do some body work, and you and I have both kind of studied similar things there. So what I've noticed, and I'm really curious to dig in with yourself, is how does that come out in your body? This, you know, unresourceful, whatever they are, negative, whatever word you want to put on it, beliefs that aren't serving you. How is another way you can tell by how it's coming out in your body, for example?
The obvious one, it's pain. Pain has so many different forms. And for most people, physical pain is going to be the one that actually gets their attention the most.
Yes.
And, you know, that's the thing that you're going to go to the doctor for, you're going to go and get a massage for. Pain is almost like the body or the being's last stop. It's like it will give you mental and emotional and spiritual signs that something is not right in your life first. And then it's like, if you're not listening to this and this and this, I'm going to have to get your attention
Give
physically.
You pain. And again,
that's
I
where
know
the pain comes out.
That kind of body work, it can be, and we're not talking about, you know, severe drastic pain, guys. We're not saying, we're not medical practitioners. It's nothing like that. But there is pains, whether it be on your right or your left, and it can mean certain things. And it's literally your body talking to you, as you say, as a last resort. I've shown you this, I've shown you this, I've tried to tell you this, and you're not listening, so I'm going to give you this. So it's a highlight, and I think paying attention. So who do you help the most? Like, who are the people that are actually open to getting this kind of help?
They have been, so far, they have been women.
Who are they?
Who are around about, you know, 40s, 50s, going through often life changes, major life changes.
Yes.
And they get to that point in their life where they start to feel like maybe their children are starting to grow up a little bit more, they have a little bit more time, whereas their time has been fully taken, their mind has been fully taken up by just life in general, work, raising children.
Yeah.
There starts to become a bit of space and time, and that's when the feelings and the emotions start to rise, and you start to realize this actually isn't, you know, the life I planned for myself. I'm not feeling right. I don't want to get out of bed today. Why is that?
But I don't know why.
I'm continuing.
I don't know why, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got this pain, and I've been to a massage therapist, and it won't go away, and I can't get rid of it. And you know, maybe there's something more to it. So there will be women who will be looking for something a little bit different than mainstream treatment, mainstream ideas of how to work with the body.
And that kind of age group sometimes, and believe it or not, it's women over 50s are the highest percentage of the new homeless.
Exactly.
In Australia at the moment. So quite often they've maybe left a relationship, or the relationship has broken down, or they've lost a partner, something like that, where they're going, I kind of thought I was all right, but who am I now? Who am I now if I'm not that wife? Who am I now if I'm not that mother? Who am I now if I'm not needed, wanted, or part of the community anymore?
Yes, and that's actually struck a chord for me. Yeah, because at the beginning of last year, I was homeless. I was in that space of home, left a relationship, moved 2.5 hours away from everybody, put into isolation through the COVID crisis
situation. Yeah.
And that's my whole journey for the last almost 2 years of finding my way through that. What's worked, what hasn't worked, looking really closely and deeply into what I was feeling in my body, or even starting to allow those feelings to show up because I had, denied, ignored them for so long.
And that's really, I love that you've brought that up. That's really key. And it's been a challenge for me over the few years. And especially for me when I lost my sister nearly 5 years ago, is actually sitting with and allowing the feelings come up, because we tend to make ourselves busy. So, oh yeah, I'll be all right. And then we don't know what's wrong with us when we feel like crap. It's the power to be able to actually sit with it and feel it, even if you don't know what it is. You don't know if it's fear, you don't know if it's whatever, you might howl at the moon. But to actually sit with it and acknowledge that there is something going on is the most powerful thing ever that I believe.
It's a gift. It is truly one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself. And I, for one, am personally, and I know there's a lot of not great things that have come out of the COVID experience, but last year, that year on my own, not being really able to go anywhere, didn't know a soul, was a gift. In my own experience of it.
And like, I'm sure I'm going to kind of throw out advice, I guess, but I'm sure you would agree with this. If you are somebody that's watching this and you say, but I can't sit with my feelings, or I can't meditate, or I don't want to let it come up, or I'm scared, well, then you reach out to somebody like Jodie to hold space for that. Somebody that's skilled, that can actually unpack it out of you. And, you know, when you learn to trust that person, then it's not so scary because you're not doing it on your own. Remember, women at our core need community and connection. And when you have connection with somebody that you can truly trust, it actually, once you say it out loud, sometimes it actually dissipates anyway. Don't you feel?
Totally. Totally.
Once you admit
that's where I can go round and round in my head for and the moment I actually speak it, that's when it's like it's released, the relief, sometimes the emotion, but it's like, it wasn't that bad after all.
And it's not,
it really does make a difference.
Out loud. There was a question posed a long time ago, you know, if a tree fell in the woods, does it still make a noise? And your logic brain would say, yes, it does. But on another level, it's like, well, no, it doesn't, because there's nobody there to translate it into a noise. And I think it's the same with somebody. It's like, if you say it out loud, does it make it any better? Well, it might, but if you say it out to somebody who can hear it, who is supportive and, you know, can hold space for you, then it may make a deeper difference, because you're saying it to somebody that can receive it, not hold on to it or anything like that, and that can tell you it's okay. There are other people that feel like you. You're not that big alien or something wrong with you that you think you are. And I think that's a really nurturing, feminine thing to actually gift to someone that we don't do, because it's a very vulnerable space. And we often kind of veer away from the vulnerability because we want to be strong warrior women. Well, that's okay, but shit happens sometimes too. So,
and I've spent most of my time hiding from being vulnerable. And then beginning to embrace it now and finding that it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be.
It's actually
and
really
asking
powerful.
For help.
Yeah, it's very powerful, because in my experience, it gives other people permission to do that too. Because everybody has she's doing great, she's on a pedestal, oh my God, why am I not as good as her, or whatever. Whereas that her is quite often in behind the scenes. And it has been my experience, bar none, of anyone that I've looked up to and thought, oh my God, she's so good and she'd do it all, that they have some shit going on. Every one of them. We just deal with it slightly different, or some people are detrimental to themselves because they hide the vulnerability completely.
Yes, and that was me. And it's like, hands up, that was me.
Yeah. And that's beautiful to allow yourself to say that. So I know that you have been working on some ways to now market this message. So when you're going out to market this kind of message, what kind of mediums do you find very good? Is it just a picture? Is it just text? Is it video? Like, what are you finding that will work best to describe how you help people in a way that they can pay attention to it?
That's one of my big challenges at the moment, because I have spent this year about almost 9 months really trying hard to get my business going. And I've been taking on board a lot of stuff from a lot of people and trying everything that's like what you need to do. Video, sales funnels, packages, you name it. It's all you know, there's a list
go
of
there.
them. Exactly. And it's like, I know what to do, but the actual getting there to do it had been eluding me. And it's really only been in this last couple of days and even this morning that something has landed for me, that it was too soon for me in the state that I've been in over these last couple of years. It's like I need baby steps. I need baby steps because it's been so overwhelming for me personally. So I've been reaching out to an email list, and I'm not using MailChimp or anything like that. I just send it out from my email account. And I've just been emailing people I've had contact with over the last 6 years, in connection with Family Tree of Beliefs. And I'm getting responses. So it's like creating a connection.
You're building that relationship.
Building a relationship, because that's where I feel that community is coming in for me. I'm reaching out to them and I'm wanting to hear from them. I want them to like talk back to me in that two-way exchange.
So I know that you recently did do video, just for example, just as you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking how you can picture that in a video, that sense of community with some great music and things like that. Is that something that you feel would work better than just a text? Now, I'm not talking about just an email, but if you can imagine situation that, because you've had some exposure to video, how do you feel about using that within a marketing campaign / funnel for your business?
I actually don't even honestly right now want to go there, because that like shuts me down. It's like the thought of that shuts me down. I know that that's another step or two ahead of it's there. And I know I'm going to have help to people like you to get me through that when I need to do it. But at the moment, it's like, because of the environment we're living in, it's like I can't overwhelm myself, or I get stuck and do nothing. So
I love that.
Absolutely.
And you're so right. You're so right, because too many people, if I look at back when I started coaching 10, 11 years ago, and the people that I looked at then and went, oh my God, you're doing such great. I could one hand maybe, if that, I wouldn't even fill one hand to say that those people that are still visible or still doing the work today, they're just not, they don't exist, because they've gone into the, I can do that. We've all done it. Overwhelmed. There's 22 bloody things to do. So the fact that you've gone through that process to give yourself some space. And I just think that people are busy. They're in lockdown. They're doing whatever. So people are doing what? They're scrolling through this. This is what's happening at the moment. And what is it that's catching their attention? And it may be there's a lot of community building. There's a lot of stuff like that. So certainly it's something to come in the future.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
For sure. Cool. And I feel that at the moment, my one of the directions is actually to be writing. It seems that that's one of my talents and my gifts, and I'm getting feedback from people about they love how I write and how I, how I put words on paper. And so I'm thinking I'm going to go that way for a little while and just investigate that. And that might be, I don't know about that, but
no, but that's good, because it obviously in whatever writing you're putting in is emotion is coming out of it, because that's what's triggering that emotion. And I think it's vital, and I know for people watching, to realize that, people have been doing this for a while, but to move at the speed of grace is better than to go hell for leather, burnout, which has been a hot topic that we've been talking about for a long time, and then have to pick all your bits back up and start from the beginning. You're still moving forward. You're still doing by moving at the speed of grace of whatever that is for you. The most important is just don't stop.
And I've had enough of having to pick up all the pieces too many times, and that's why it's like, come back to grace, come back to the speed of grace.
Yeah. Beautiful. So we're just about to finish up today, and thank you so much for being here. But if you were to give one bit of advice to anyone that's watching that is going, you're right, I'm not quite sure, there's something I'm not quite sure is right, and what you're saying is kind of resonating with me, what is one last tip that you would give those people
Okay. The tip is that you don't know your potential. Most of us don't know our potential.
No.
And to look into what that potential is. And if you want help with that, that's something that I've been able to identify a few elements in our blueprint, and I can pull bits out of them and see things that other people can't see.
Yeah,
That
and we'll make sure that we put your contact details underneath this video as well, so they can get in contact with you. A couple more questions for you personally, and one of them is, what is success to you?
Oh, success. Success is seeing the look on someone else's face, and often with emotion.
Yeah.
Something that I have helped them to see within themselves. Yeah. And it's shifted something for them, and it's like it's lifted something for them. It's like I've had what we could call a positive impact. It's like that's success.
It's fascinating that most women that I interview, a variant of that answer is always the answer. It's always when I see somebody else I help succeed. Always, without fail, when I interview women. It's fascinating. There's a version of that. And one last question for you before we sign off, and I love this one because it usually stumps people, but I'm sure you would have heard it. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing instead?
Probably just writing, I think. Writing. And I know that, like, I've been looking at doing, working more with clients. So that's what I'm doing now thing. But I think maybe the writing and just, I don't know, maybe there's a book, or maybe there's I don't know, ebooks or something like that. So,
but that's amazing that came up, because you kind of go, if you weren't doing that, what would you be doing? And that's often a sign of what your deep passion, what you love is. It's like, I just love writing, man. So, okay, well, let's funnel that writing into something that can make you a sustainable business too.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Jodie, thank you so much for joining me on the For Frick's Sake Marketing today. I hope we've been kind enough to you and haven't made you feel too uncertain.
Yes. No, it's been fun. Thank you, Carmel. Thank you.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. I love having you guys on, and know that your message, as it goes out to other people, it'll go to the people that need to hear you. So if you do need to get in contact with Jodie, I'll make sure that I put the contact in the bottom here on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe so you get more interviews, and I'll put Jodie's details under this video too. But for now, it's bye from me.